Did they turn it off?
I don't know. We're good now?
Turned it on.
No, now they're on.
All right.
The white light's on.
All right, now we're good.
Remember this, off is on is off. Remember that.
We got this figured out.
Okay, take two. Welcome to the first select board meeting for the new year. Our first order of business, we have two sets of minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept the December 6th regular and December 16th executive session minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second? Oh, second. Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion?
Point of order. Well, is Cheyenne taking minutes remotely?
She is.
Yes. For checking this.
Bean's gonna. Well, I think your headphones are in.
I think we should clean up the last sentence in the town manager update. And maybe that should be, will be a meeting or a special meeting.
There'll be a meeting. There'll be a meeting. Or a special
What we're
meeting.
proposing is a joint meeting with the select board, the planning commission, and the general public. So somehow if we can capture that.
Correct. I'm just making note that there'll be a special meeting, a future special meeting to discuss it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other feedback, comments on either the regular minutes or the executive session? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item would be the orders through today, January 6th. We have and there's like 7 or 8 pages.
There's a just
You guys are spending too much money.
we are just paying the bills as they come in.
All that Christmas holiday shopping.
That's right.
So, I have a question if we want to start.
Sure.
Have we had a motion yet?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll move
Go
to
ahead.
check the orders through today.
And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you for catching that, Clyde. Jim.
The 3/4, $94,000 payment.
Comcast.
My very question. What the heck is
That was our Comcast invoice.
What did they originally quote?
So I was unable to find the original quote from Comcast.
Yeah.
It was higher than anticipated. Definitely. I think we had been kind of budgeting like in the $60,000 range. And this took a little bit of work to get a semi-itemized invoice from Comcast. So we've actually been sitting on this invoice for a few months. Originally, it was a very brief email that said, please pay $93,000.
Yeah, I went through my notes today during that time when Martin and I were sort of working with these folks, and I didn't see anything that radical in there that would imply this.
So it's Comcast?
It was Comcast.
I believe the original, I believe this was done by email. I don't believe I have a copy of this email, but I believe they originally quoted $47,700.
Okay. Yeah, it was it caught us a little off guard.
But if that email exists, is there an ability to say, hey, you missed the mark?
If that email exists and I can find it, we can work with.
Do you remember that?
Kind of vaguely. I don't remember them really giving us a quote. He was always standoffish every time I spoke with him.
You can reach out to Rita at Two Rivers as well, who might also have a copy.
Well, actually, let me correct the number. That was the VHB budget. The email would have been for $60,000.
Right, I was like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 60 or 47?
47.7 was the VHB projected budget
Okay.
for Comcast, and Comcast's initial estimate was 60.
It's still 30 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just okay, we'll check it with
Yep.
Rita and see if we can find it.
We'll see if we can find that original one.
I can do a search on my email doing that.
But our bond is expended, so where was the money coming?
So you all voted prior to my time to take any from the highway search from the,
We never did the vote.
you never did the vote.
It was the plan, but it was never voted on.
So right now, the accounting is about $1.6 million total for the project after we deduct the grant money that we got.
Right.
So that's how much, so that is over the bond, the original bond amount.
Right.
So
So the select board would need to,
make a motion to spend the money from the highway fund.
or, I mean, it would be up to the select board, we'd make the motion to reimburse from the highway fund, but since the highway fund is under duress, do we make the motion to reimburse from, ARPA surplus or for some other area? So I mean, I think we'd want a recommendation, that's the best.
So we have, I wouldn't take it out of the ARPA money, but we have unallocated surplus money from the previous 2 years, which we could use to pay for the overage. So there's about $400,000 in unallocated funds at this point.
Yeah, so it's just a suggestion, if you want to think through where the best use of the dollars is, you can make the recommendation next meeting, we can go.
So do we now have all the invoices associated with the project?
Correct, we do.
So if we can maybe get an accounting
Yes.
of that?
Yep, we just got those, I just got just updated the
That's fine.
spreadsheet today.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And then we can, like you said, Jen, figure out how we want to pay for it.
Yeah. From where?
And we know we have to pay for it.
Right.
What's the path of least resistance?
That's a new technique. You that's the truth. It was 60,000, the estimate, and they came in at 90.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna try that. See what happens to my stonework. Just the,
I think they were the only vendor that approached business that way.
so you only have one vendor, then you can charge whatever you want.
Well, Comcast was a perennial problem during the project for many reasons.
Interesting.
They were late and everything. John, on page 5, the LED safety marking for 11 grand.
Yep.
Is that, if I understand from the last meeting or so, they're going to come back and try to make the correct mistakes that they were?
Correct, so that money had to be spent, it was part of a grant, and those invoices had to be submitted. So they, however, made some mistakes when they were here. We're trying to work with them to come back and do what they had originally quoted us for.
Right.
So-
Okay. Okay, and we've done the paperwork for the grant.
Correct. Correct.
With the, never mind.
And I just have a very personal question. I didn't realize White's Dairy Supply did hydraulic lines.
Yes.
I've been going into West Lead to one of the other places for that, so that's good to know. It's a little closer.
And cheaper.
I would hope so, although I was shocked the last time I had to.
You'll be shocked at White's too.
Yeah.
They're just expensive, so.
Batteries, anything to do with tractor, they got batteries, all that. I go there all the time.
I used to, but I just didn't know they did hydraulic lines.
Yes.
One of the
Okay.
hopefully easy question.
Yep.
Fleet liability insurance, is that a yearly amount?
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
The fleet liability insurance, is that a yearly, quarterly? So 16,000 for just for.
This year's insurance bill was $109,000 for workers' comp, fleet liability.
$64,000 plus just for car insurance.
Trucks and equipment,
Right.
that's everything that's.
Does that cover drivers?
And
Is that-
property,
And
the property
property.
also.
Okay.
Yeah, that's everything except workers' comp,
Who's the carrier?
VLCT. And we got back, $6,000 or $8,000 credit. They give that money back to the members.
Correct, that's
So
what,
if kind of self-insured, if it's under
Yes.
in a year, you get it.
and they've done that now a couple of years in a row.
Okay, any other questions on the warrants? Trish, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with everything.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, moving on, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
None for me.
I'm not aware of any either.
Well, I should say, under new business, the Lull Farm Lane reclassification, the, Theodore Ambrose was not able to attend tonight, so we can table that discussion if you would like until the next
I
meeting.
would like to just open that discussion,
Okay.
because in reading the documents, I'm rather confused, so maybe we can ask for how to make it clearer when we do have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to public comments. Are there any? Yes, sir.
Sheriff Park, I have a question, and when is the Mill Street going to be on the future agenda items? When is that coming up?
What specifically about?
That bridge, the bridge, Mill Street, in North Hartland? Yep. The bridge, we talked about. Is it going to be redone at some point?
So at this point, so we had done a study on the northern bridge, the newer, quote unquote newer of the two bridges. V-Trans had hired a contractor to study the older bridge. That V-Trans report came out last summer or springtime. They're taking that and then they're gonna come back to us with a plan with how they would like to proceed in kind of remedying the structural issues on the abutments in the bridge. We have not seen or heard from that, so I think that will kind of drive that discussion.
Okay. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you may have done this, but which bridge are we talking about?
that's the older of the bridges, which I believe is this,
Southern.
Northern
the
Bridge.
northern, that's the northern bridge, yeah. The northern bridge is the older of the two
But
bridges.
their timeline was,
So their construction timeline is years from
Years.
now, right? But, they said sometime in the next, I think it was 8 months, over the winter, they were gonna develop a plan for action.
Are there any public comments online?
There are not, as of right now.
Okay, then moving on to old business, the Quechee Road. At our last meeting, we continued the discussion that we've been having over a number of meetings based on the engineering report that Pathways Construction submitted to the town. The issue associated with that is the expense. 6.1 million. 6.4 to rebuild the entire road to a decent standard. I think what I would like this evening for us to do is to clarify if there's going to be an article this year on the warrants to ask for a bond for that, or another article that would talk about that. I think as we left the meeting, in my memory, our last meeting, we were inclined to say, just given the climate associated with the property education tax and just taxes in general, that we probably ought to spend a year working with the community to get them to understand the project and to also begin to break down the project into ways that we could approach it without sort of doing everything all at once. We've also talked about, and we can continue our discussion tonight, can we begin work on the project by doing this summer some ditching and culvert work without borrowing money. We also talked about possibly getting a loan from Mascoma Bank should we want to be more aggressive with that work. So that's my memory. So tonight, again, our discussion is what to approach. Jim, you put out a follow-up email to us wondering or suggesting that maybe we should go for the bond right now. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So it's a difficult situation no matter how you slice it. My concern is if we don't do something early, right, we're kicking the can down the road and costs go up, right? So that's kind of the concern. The other concern is just getting the message out. So if we decide to do something early, right, and it's not $6 million, it's probably not even $4 million, right? Maybe it's something much smaller. If we decide to do something earlier, we still would need to have some type of a meeting in January, early February, invite the residents so we could kind of explain what that something is before we get to town meeting.
Yeah.
You have to explain it again at town meeting, right? So the thought that's kicking around in my head is really, we know the section 4s, right, the worst sections, was the price tag, was it like 1.6?
Yeah, I think sum total is like just shy of 4 to do this, the 3s and 4s.
The 3s and 4s, but 4s I think were, I'm doing this from memory.
Yeah, in like the $2 million range.
So if we did something like a $2.5 million bond, did all the 4s, right? And if there was some contiguous 3s that we could knock out with the extra $500,000, now you got a chunk, you've got the absolute worst sections done, and some of them the next level down done. It's a $2.5 million bond. Our interest payment for the first year, we could potentially use the surplus monies that we have to cover that, so you wouldn't have a budget impact until fiscal year 27.
27.
Right?
27.
Well, yeah. But people would have to understand that budget impact now, right?
Yeah.
So it's an idea. It's like, is there a perfect road here? No.
Yeah, I like the metaphor. We are planning, we feel we have a need for an informational pre-town meeting anyway this year, just to make sure that folks are, as many people in town understand the full scope of the articles that we're introducing, and some of them we'll be talking about shortly. So Clyde, your thoughts, and Trace, so hard?
I'm on the fence because it's on one hand, I'm afraid that if we bring it to vote in March, that it's gonna get turned down just because of the amount of tax money that we're already having to pay, and I can understand why. But I also understand the fact that it's sooner or later, because we have to fix the road. It's our responsibility to do it.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, we have to get all this information out to the people in the public. So I'm right dead in the middle of this. I was thinking maybe like a warning or have a meeting in February to kind of test the water and see what people think. I don't know if I would bring a dollar amount there that we were going to try to, ask to pass this year or not. That's the part that I'm on the fence about. But both sides of this are correct. And so it makes it a very difficult decision, either bring it up or not.
Yeah, I think what you said is very clear. I don't think any of us in the room are really thinking we can bypass it. We have to fix that road.
Can't ignore it.
And really the challenge is what's the best way to do it for all those reasons you mentioned, Trace. Just the impact on our taxpayers and we alluded to the longer we wait, the more it costs. And that sort of thing.
Absolutely, doesn't seem to be going down. Costs don't seem to be going down, they're only going up. So what's it gonna be in another year if we decide, okay, and we've got a vote and people have decided they're willing to spend $6.4 million and now it becomes $7.5 million instead.
Yeah.
And so,
It's worth noting that even if, regardless of what happens at town meeting, construction would be a year and a half out from that town meeting. So if we voted at a town meeting in 2025, construction's not happening until summer 2026.
Right.
So if we wait a year or some amounts of time, there's gonna be that additional lag, right? So if we do town meeting 2026, we're talking construction 27.
So I'd like to have sort of a hybrid approach to what Jim is saying, which is, two things. One is I'm really sensitive to the fact of what happened last year with our property taxes. This year it's not going to be any better. And secondly, more than anything, more than the intersection, people's ideas as far as what we should do with the Quechee Road are all over the place. Some people are saying we should just grind it all up and bring it back to gravel, and so I think we really need to do a lot of education of our citizenry. And so a thought I had was, and I also don't want to take full credit with this, full disclosure, I was Santa Claus for Trace's grandchildren. They had to return their Santa Claus suit.
This I really wanted to
And
see.
so, well, I'm trying to tell you why I'm talking. And so I returned it over the weekend and I was talking to Trace. And one of the things that Trace said when we were having our discussion was, maybe we should invite the engineer to town meeting. Have the engineer, excuse me, give a presentation. And I think we should tape that presentation, put it on the website. But then is not bond now, but bond later on in the year. Bond in November, but bond where we could go out to bid. So possibly we could start
You'd have to do
construction.
a special meeting.
But have a special meeting
Special
before that to get, because I'm of the opinion, if the residents vote it down this time, we're not going to be able to come back in the following year, or we're going to come back and it's going to be a very small bond, which just doesn't get it. So I'm of the mind that we try to spend, as I said, I don't have a magic number, $200,000-$300,000. And the engineer has now said this to us twice. We need a lot of drainage work that needs to get done before we do anything. Let's start working on some of that drainage this coming summer, whether our staff can do it or whether we need to go out to do it.
Point of clarification on that, we did ask that question. And, the question we asked was, the drainage work you're talking about, is it included in the price that you've quoted? And the answer was yes. So those quotes assume the contractor is doing the drainage.
But we're worried about the road continuing to deteriorate.
Yeah.
And he has said that we can make the deterioration a lot less if we start to unplug some of those culverts and deal with some of the ledge. So my idea would be, again, invite them, get people used to it, have meetings, whether in the library, whatever, people can come and talk to us and we can talk about it, and then bring it up at a later date.
But I think it's just worth clarifying with the engineer, because if we do work, which is fine, if it's helpful, we should do it, right? But if we're gonna do it and it's throwaway work, because they're gonna have to rip it up anyway when they do this project,
Right.
then,
I'm not talking about ripping stuff up. I mean, he said, hey, there's just plug culverts.
Yeah.
And some of it is just putting in drainage,
Or ditching alongside.
ditching alongside of it, that kind of stuff.
That's where it really is.
So that would be my.
and so one more thing. So along with that, no information creates misinformation. So if you don't tell the public what's going on now and let them hear it from the professionals, like the engineer that should be coming in and speaking to them, everyone just starts bantering about how much it's going to cost. The numbers change, the distance changes, the road even might change. You know, so,
Trace, I'd like to build on that for a second and then come to you, Clyde. I also feel as a member of the select board that it's each one of our responsibility to get out there and talk to your neighbors. And just,
My neighbors?
well,
yeah, me.
that's true. Everybody, you guys all live in the same place.
Yeah.
Save me a beer. But I think we have to do that on a grassroots level, as well as have some of the meetings that would be more like in the library or upstairs. But the more we can get that information out, I think the better we'll be. Just a quick funny story. They gave me fentanyl in the emergency room.
Today?
Nice.
A half hour ago.
What did I just say?
Make a motion to fill funds.
Jeez.
Oh, boy, I lit myself up on that one.
Wow, you lined us right up.
So in between asking, did you feel it, the fellow who was doing the work was from Hartland. So I said, can I talk to you about the Quechee Road? Because he lived on the Quechee Road. So I don't remember the answer though. But I think the important point that I would like to do is to say yes, Trace. And then we both need professional presentations, but we also need to know this project inside out ourselves so that we can begin to.
I think Tom's idea is a good one, because we could still, if we can get the kind of socialization of the project out there, have people understand it, we could do a special meeting early enough such that it could be something that went
into that next
shovel ready
construction
next year.
season. Yeah, exactly. Clyde,
Well,
next.
As you said, I talked to somebody on the Quechee Road, and of course, they're all going to be in favor of it, no problem, which they have been over the last 40 years. But also, I live on a road that was scheduled for resurfacing 10 years ago, and I haven't seen the gravel yet. So, I mean, you either bite the bullet and do it, or, I know that everybody worries about the education side, but our responsibility is to the highways and that. So got to, you kick that can enough times, and it isn't a soup can, it's a number 10 can.
No, I totally agree. And if it wasn't for the large amount, I think we all would be.
The town suffers because of the education budget.
There's one comment online that is kind of, I think, summarizing what you all are kind of saying, is that until the education funding gets figured out, won't taxes continue to increase in theory? The cost of construction will rise. So if we start the conversation, we can make those in town aware of what's coming and what the need is.
Yeah.
Which I think is absolutely.
Very much so. I, out of curiosity, recently I went and read up on the Great Flood of 27. Yeah, and when you look at the history of roads in Vermont, that was a turning point, because up to that point there were a lot of toll roads, and those roads were devastated, very similar to what happened with Irene. And the state began to sort of move in and say we have to have good roads in order to grow as a state. And of course, automobiles were just coming on at that point. So I think, when I look at the Quechee Road, even if we went back to dirt, we would need to talk about 80% of the project or 90% of the project of building up, fixing the drainage, and then building up the road surface so that when the hard pack went on.
I think we asked that question at some point with the engineer, and the cost wouldn't be that much less.
It was pretty similar. There's 2 points that I want to make that I think are relevant. One, and we can talk about this in the next meeting, but Jim, you referenced the highway fund, which we took some money out of for a truck purchase. No, not the highway fund, but there's strains on the town funds that exist. We have some surplus money, we have some ARPA money. we're talking about using some part of that money to fund the overages from the Three Corners project. We have to, we might be looking at a short-term loan to do some of this work as opposed to existing town money.
So, which is why you need a capital plan.
Right.
Right, so that everything's factored in, you make your choices, you prioritize the projects and where the revenue's gonna come up.
Yeah, I was actually working on our town report for the select board, and that's in my opening and closing paragraph, that that's what our goal for the next year is to have that.
Good. Because we'll have to hire Pathways or a consultant to do some of this work for us, right? We pay them to prepare the report, but coming to town meetings, presenting things along those lines would be an additional beyond your existing contract. So there's cost in doing the work, and there's cost in having an engineer come and break it down for town.
But if you're just talking about breaking the project down, doing a presentation, that shouldn't be a lot.
It won't be a lot, but there will be a cost to it. Right, I just want to be clear that, at this point, our contract with Pathways is fulfilled.
Right, yeah, so whatever.
So anything at this point is above and beyond.
So what I feel like I'm hearing right now, and I don't know if we need an action on this, is that we will continue our conversations, create an information campaign, how to get the information out to the members of the town, and also look to begin work this summer with either with internal funds or with a small bank loan to supplement, and we'll, as we move closer to that, we can make decisions about the best use of resources, internal versus contract from out. And then finally, possibly move to have a special meeting where we float the idea or present a bond of some amount. We may have a strategy there that we're doing things in multiple parts, but I don't think we know that right now.
What's the lead time you need to get approved?
Yeah, so I'd like to clarify a couple things. One is, I think we should, in whatever we do, is state that come this fall, we'll start to have a discussion about the bond. I'm trying to keep us online about, because if we are going to bond and we're going to do it whenever it is, we should probably start it in early fall. Okay. Secondly, we don't really know a number. I wonder if we could ask the engineer to say how much, we want, here's what we want to do. Could you give us an idea of how much you think it might be, or give us an idea of which sections we might do?
Okay.
Back of the napkin, because we got to get an RFP out.
Right, exactly.
And so, and how much would it cost for them to write an RFP unless you feel you could do it? Yeah. But, and then the only issue I have is I don't necessarily want to be saying in a public meeting when we're going to be issuing an RFP how much we're going to give, because that's, lo and behold, the contractors are all going to be, Right. But we need more information right now to be able to decide how much we want to spend. Maybe we can spend $150,000 and do a bunch of work, or maybe it's $250,000. I have no idea, is what I'm trying to say. So can we have this engineer, he's done the design, he can look at his drawings and have him give us an idea of how much would be a reasonable amount to spend. Does that make sense to you?
It does. I feel like we went down that road with him a little already. And I feel like his response was, you guys got to come up with a number, and then...
I was going to say, yes, he and I had that conversation a month or so ago, and that was his response. That was the response, basically. It was like, will you tell me how much you want to spend?
Tell how much you can get done.
And we'll prioritize from there.
Yeah. And I think the other piece that, Tim, you brought up is that we're not talking about touching the blacktop with this initial work. We're not taking up a surface.
So I think that,
Unless we have to.
Working on drainage.
right, drainage, and I hear what you're saying, we don't want to replace culverts that are going to get replaced again. There might be instances though where that is that's the correct path, and we would rely on the engineer to dictate that.
I agree.
And is there going to be a necessity, if it's still 18 months out, that some of the areas where there's that 18-inch dip, we have to fill it,
They're
make it safe?
I wouldn't certainly think that would be a good idea. I mean,
I just don't want
I drive
anybody,
that road quite a bit, and it's, if
Yeah.
there's oncoming traffic, I don't get a chance to sort of miss those 18-inch dips.
so just to keep this going, I'd like to make a suggestion that we ask the engineer what we could do for $250,000.
2.5 million?
250,000 for the summer's work. This is just for this summer, for drainage. Right. It seems though the consensus was we were gonna do drainage this summer, have an education campaign, and then in the early fall, we would discuss having a bond and then having a special meeting to have the bond,
When would that meeting be? Early fall?
early fall.
Yeah.
Or we could start whenever. Yeah.
Whenever.
Well, because do we know on average how long it takes to bond in the state?
Oh, it's pretty quick. It's quick.
Okay,
There
because
is
you
twice a
need
Huh?
a bond.
Twice a year.
Twice a year. Yeah.
So what's the deadline in the fall?
May 15th, May 20th, and early November.
Okay,
And the bond application is very simple.
all right, because you would need to, if you were gonna do an RFP, you would have to have that out, I'm guessing in December at the latest.
Probably at the latest, yeah.
So it's tight time frame.
Towards the end.
Yeah,
I hate to pin people down.
not as tight as March, but.
Right.
I hate pinning people down, but I also know that if we just keep kicking it down the road, we don't have a specific date written any place where we're gonna get started with something. I'd like to see today, I really, truly, personally would like to see today, that late fall meeting scheduled.
So
that
what
we
I'm
know
trying to
when
do
that's
is
gonna
to
happen.
see if you folks agree with my suggestion.
I like the
At
suggestion.
the next meeting, why don't we have John come up with a timeline
Okay?
that would make it work. Working with Martin, we find out when we gotta get to the bond bank and do all that
So
stuff.
what's on that list for John to do?
So if I can summarize the conversation, essentially.
Please.
There's a suggestion to spend up to $250,000 to do an intermediate drainage kind of temporary patch
A little bit of patch here.
Sure. Work. And then in the fall, hold a special town meeting to request a bond. Between now and fall, we would be doing informational public campaign, public outreach meetings to build awareness of the project. I would suggest not waiting until fall to start those outreach meetings, but to do them.
The first one will be a town meeting.
The first one will be a town meeting.
Yes.
And then we hold
And also
right, exactly, a couple more throughout the course of the summer. We hold the special election sometime in October.
And the only other, excuse me.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The only other variation I think we're talking about is that there may be a variation on the amount of the bond that we're going after. Are we going after the whole
But
amount?
we have decided.
That's not been discussed right
That's
now.
not being discussed.
No, I'm just saying that's the other, if we're talking about a project plan to get us to the fall to that point, that's a decision point along the way.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
So
This
that.
will also give us an opportunity
Yes. and-
with the legislature this year to see if they come up with any ideas as far as reducing the property tax and stuff like that. So it's supposedly 2 years, so they may not do much this year, but.
Are we allowed to get, to hire somebody that could oversee, or maybe a committee, a subcommittee that can help oversee that are, contractors that work on roads, or somebody that has that background experience, other than an engineer,
Yes.
somebody that physically does the work?
Yeah, I mean, we could hire a project manager.
I mean, yeah, project manager, we would be getting one of those
We could be,
for the town.
we could.
If we do
And I
this-
would,
Once we do the whole project, we would have to have that.
right.
We have to have a project manager, yeah.
Right, I don't think we need that for this summer's work. I think that if they're doing some sort of $2, $3, $4 million bond, it's probably
Absolutely,
worthwhile
yeah.
to hire a project manager to manage
clerk of the
it.
work.
Right,
As I was just saying, when we did our policing, we had a committee from the town. Is that something that?
No, I wouldn't do that
I wouldn't
for
do
town.
that, because it
No.
would, too many fingers.
Way too many people.
So just an example, for the intersection project, we had hired a project manager from Two Rivers, but we also had a on-site engineering road person to make sure that the depth of gravel that was in the spec was actually going into the ground. So they, that was the Everett Hammond piece. So it's likely we would need potentially,
And that's
it's
very-
required
very
of that, but, so, yeah. Okay,
we can talk about this now or during the budget discussion. We do have the potential tax increase for a bond, just as a conversation, for the purposes of conversation, to see what it would look like.
We definitely have to have that.
Yeah.
That's what people are gonna want.
Well, no, so we have it now.
yeah, and if
So-
everyone is seated.
Right. I mean, it's actually- so-
Quite significant.
So this is subject to mild changes, because this is the 2024 grand list, so, it could fluctuate either way. But a $4 million bond, because if we're taking the 3s and the 4s, basically that was the number. It's $99.70 per $100,000 of assessed value. And that's with this budget and the bond.
So without the bond, what is it, just?
Without the bond, per 100,000, it's $26.60. We can talk about that during the budget discussion, but, right, it's a bit of it's absolutely a jump.
Almost more than 3 times.
That's a $4 million bond over 20 years.
And that's what it takes to do, well, at least that was estimated for 3s and.
For the 3s and the 4s. And again, that's 20 years, which is, it's a long time, and that's kind of the useful life of that road as well. We're making that last bond payment, and then talking about road repairs again.
Okay, so I think the final takeaway is, John, we're asking you to create a bit of a project plan.
Yep, for the 21st.
5 or 6 items that we want to include on that. Okay. Any other?
And one last thing is ask the engineer to come to town meeting, or somebody.
So we can talk about town meeting or the special meetings that we're having over the course of the summer.
I think you have everybody together at town meeting.
At town meeting?
Special meetings are much.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned is then we're gonna videotape it, and then have that videotape available on the website or wherever.
So we have to
And then
think through
people can then look at it.
Yep.
But I agree with Jim, I think the most people we're gonna get is
The
gonna be
people
at one
The people
time.
look here and they're gonna come to.
Well, you're gonna get 100 and, what do we get, 150 at town meeting or something?
It's
160.
likely the
That's
same
all you
people
can
are gonna
have.
come to a special.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, I would encourage like September, if we end up at this point.
Right.
September for the special meeting, because I think you cut it too close.
With October. Sure.
You need some wiggle room.
It's not late August.
Now, the other thing about August is vacation.
It's vacation, and it's a busy time of year, yeah. Okay, yeah, well, we can shoot for September and build around that.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, this is not an easy puzzle to solve.
If you're on fentanyl.
You've seen the muscle relaxing.
We can have DEA here anytime.
Speed's gotten.
I know nothing. Okay, next item is new business in the town and highway budget. Again, this is an item that I think this is maybe our fourth or fifth look at it, and I hope that tonight this will be our final look, and we will have a vote to go forward.
That is my expectation and hope as well. So after the last meeting, there was a few minor changes suggested, ensuring that we had enough in the policing budget to ensure that we were covered for what we're currently contracted, what we're currently getting for service at 32 hours a week with the Windsor County Sheriff and the 10 hours a week with the Vermont State Police. So we made some modifications there. And then we have additional questions on the budget. Well, when we were able to finalize all the insurance information from employees as well prior to the end of, we needed that by the 31st of December.
And you were projecting that finalizing of choices for insurance plans would not have much of an impact?
Right, it was whether everybody went with option A or everybody went with option B, the difference was going to be, within, $5,000 or $10,000. So it was kind of negligible.
I asked John earlier today, but I couldn't find, I thought we were adding the ordinance and planning position back to the part-time position. Yep. And the answer is we moved it.
So we
added it back, but
we added it back, but we took it out of as a staff position because we didn't know what it would look like. So if you look on page 1 of the general fund expenses, it is the $20,000 line item under administration contractual services.
Where's this?
So that's the Town of Heartland general fund expenses administration.
That's why you're on a different page and you're looking. Yeah, you gotta number these.
Well, they're numbered by, they are numbered.
Department.
They are,
How are they numbered?
Just didn't print.
it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is the 6th page in your budget packet. How about that?
Alright, there we go.
Because we go through expenses first.
There we go. Yeah.
Or
Which
revenue.
is page 1.
Right, page 1. It's page 6 or page 1, depending on what you're looking at.
I see it. Yep.
So a little over 8% on, increase in taxes on the general fund side.
8.14 on the general
So
fund side.
that fractional increase in the highway side,
0.69.
what's the total between the two?
The total between the two, I don't have that number, actually. I wasn't ready for that one.
Because it's not gonna be an 8.3% increase, it's gonna be much less than, well, somewhat less than that.
Correct, because the highway fund is, I'm sure we can do this math.
8.73.
You can't just add those two numbers together.
69 and 814.
No, it's, different.
What you looking for?
I can answer it.
Because the increase in the highway is, just 1 second.
8.4. So you just find the right page. Just got it.
What are you looking, did we,
Yeah.
did we ever get any grant funds for actually doing the work project? Not just the assessment?
We did not get,
We weren't.
we did not
Get any?
selected.
We weren't.
Yeah,
That's the bad thing.
correct.
Very disappointing, but we did not.
Yeah.
And actually, Tom, we just found that out in early December.
Right, mid-December, somewhere around
And as Jim is calculating, when we last met, the library funds were in flux, and that has settled down.
That is, yep, so the library budget is set, they shifted some staff around, reallocated some hours.
That's it. I don't know if I did this right, I have to double check it, but I think you're at like roughly 4.8% budget increase between the.
Between the two.
Right. So I just think, so for us, this is fine, but for the message.
Yes.
That gets out to people, you gotta have that 5% number.
Yeah, at town meeting, yeah, absolutely.
So what did you come up with?
I can't, I just looked at the revenue
Yes.
lines, and not all the revenue lines are taxes.
Okay.
But it's 4.8% increase in required revenue from the town.
And so if we, using that 4.8%, which, may not be 100% accurate, we used, I think it was 3.6, Martin, or 3.8 as the,
We use 4%.
was it 4%? We used 4% as the inflation, number when we started the budget. So we're talking a percentage point of a,
Right, yeah,
of a
but
budget
those
increase.
are justifiable, it's, additional paving money, it's additional equipment money.
Exactly.
To catch up on purchases that have been deferred.
Exactly.
Any other discussion points?
No, again, so this is, like you mentioned earlier, this is the third or fourth time we've really looked at the budget, unless there are specific line items within the budget to talk about in more detail. I don't have any.
I'm sad, so,
Yeah,
should we,
so we need to make a motion to approve it, or?
I think we do, even though there's going to be an article coming up in a moment that would sort of spell it out. But
Correct.
why not
Correct.
have a separate motion to,
Approve the budget as presented.
Then I'd make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 general fund and highway budget.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Trace, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Can we just modify that by the date, today's date, since this is a slightly different budget from previous budgets?
As presented on
January 6th.
January 6th, 2025.
There you go.
Okay. I just want to say thank you to John and to Martin. This is their first cooperative budget together, so I appreciate all the work that went into this and as well as the staff for the various chairs all contributed, so that was great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, going on to new business, the 2025 town meeting articles, discussion and action. We have in our packet a copy of those articles. John, you want to step through it?
Sure. So again, relatively straightforward. You'll see a couple of the articles which we've discussed. So Article 2 and Article 4 are both when outside organizations request a change in their appropriation, it gets broken out of the larger appropriation article. And so we have two organizations so far that have requested increases, County Prevention Partnership and Volunteers in Action. Their increase is very nominal. They're going from two separate appropriations to one appropriation. And then currently the Hartland Volunteer Fire Department has requested an increase. There are a couple more out there that we have not seen the completed petitions for. So that may change. They have until the 16th to get those in, January 16th to get those in.
Are there any significant amounts outstanding?
I believe one of them was for about $20,000.
Okay.
And it was
It's not currently an appropriation.
ever.
Not currently, no. It is the cooperative preschool.
Are they for-profit, not-for-profit, what are
I
they?
believe they're a not-for-profit organization. I believe they're requesting $20,000. Oh, Cheyenne says $5,000, but I don't,
I think it was 5,000.
was it 5? I don't, we'll double check, but
pretty good to start with 20 and go to 5. That feels like-
Sure, but that number seems not in line with the request that I got, but. So there are at least one, potentially more appropriation requests out there.
So in theory, we can look at these. now.
We can look at these, but we
Approve
have
them
until
next meeting.
we'd have to, you can't approve these until the 21st because they have until the 16th to get those requests in. So somebody could come in tomorrow with something we don't even know about.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so we are not having an action tonight on the orders.
Correct. That's correct. That's, yeah.
But I guess, are there any questions on the other articles or?
Just walking through them real quick. So, Article 3 is kind of, there's this existing $94,673 in the Highway Hydro Fund, which we talked about at the previous meeting. That was a back tax payment in North Heartland. That's been sitting there. So we're going to move that into the equipment fund so we can actually utilize that funding.
Okay, and that's the highway equipment fund?
That's the highway equipment fund, correct. And then Article 6 is just the town budget, which we just talked about.
So why don't we just wordsmith this?
Yep.
So as Phil just said, call it the highway equipment fund, so it's
I think
clear.
the correct name of the fund is equipment.
Right, it's the equipment fund.
Or maybe in parentheses, highway equipment or something, just so people know.
Or after the name.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
what I'm
purchase
saying.
of highway equipment.
Yeah.
Right. And then we'll send these, so once these get approved, they'll get sent to the attorney for review to make sure that all the wording is correct before they get submitted in the town report.
Although, does that back you up against the deadline or no?
The turnaround from our attorney is very quick. So, often kind of same day. So Article 5 is just the big appropriation request, which we see every year. Article 6 is the general fund and highway fund, which you all just approved. Then if you flip the page, this is where there's 4 additional articles, 3 of which might warrant discussion. We talked about Article 7 already. This has to be done every 5 years to exempt the Esquibog from property taxes. So we just do it once every 5 years. It's been done previously. And then Article 8 and Article 9 are new this year. Article 8 is to vote to eliminate the office of town lister and replace it with a professionally qualified assessor. So that would be a significant change from what Hartland has had in, in history, but potentially moving towards, there's a regional movement and statewide movement really to go with contracted assessors. It's not it's not a reflection of the current listers that we have in town. It's to potential cost savings and professionalization of the lister's
But
office.
you do, so there's not a cost savings built into this budget. But
There is not a cost savings.
Could be a cost savings now.
I would anticipate a cost savings if this article passes.
I know an attorney wrote article, could we put it in plain English though?
Yeah.
The thing of discharge, the same duty, proceed in the discharge, therefore of.
So we can ask if we can simplify that, but again,
Because no one understands that kind of stuff.
right, and this one, at town meeting will need explaining,
I
obviously.
know, but, it's.
Or if you could put a slide up there.
Right,
But
and that was my
still,
anticipation.
this is just an attorney being an attorney. It doesn't matter, because he's saying what the provision is in statute, so.
Yeah, and what's Title 32? There's no reference. Where is that? Is that a?
That's that's the state statute, so it's 17 via state. So it's,
Right,
it's
so
title.
is Title 32 part of 17?
Yes, yes, so it's
Yes.
subsection.
Which I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah, so this is the language that, is used.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can,
Yeah.
whether or not we can, bring that down to plain English, or, as Jim suggested, have a slide at town meeting, have the article up, and then explain it to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially the opening couple phrases within the first run-on sentence says it all. We don't need
Yeah,
a
it's
lot of
crazy.
the discharge thereof.
Right, but whether or not we can, we will certainly ask the
Okay.
question.
Yeah, I understand. We're actually, this is a big change for the town, so we have to do it right.
Right. Right. And then Article 9 is authorizing the select board to potentially sell the North Hartland School building, but keeping Helen Courier Park as a separate parcel.
Okay, and again, we've been talking about that, and that is one of the options that emerged from the North Hartland School Committee.
And that probably needs a slide too, to maybe explain the challenges of that building.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll recap what the committee report said and some of the challenges that the North Hartland School building faces if it were to be revitalized.
Could we put, instead of building lot question mark, plus or minus something? I mean, what do we need? I mean, we could do a simple GIS exercise and just get an idea, a rough idea of how much it would be. See what it says, sufficient land for a building lot.
So it turns out that it's an existing parcel on its own. The land's always been two parcels. The park is a parcel and the school, kind of that hill is the dividing line. I contacted a surveyor and he said it's actually already been, it was never actually merged from the mid-1970s. So we could eliminate sufficient land for a building lot and say, sell the North Hartland School building along with adjacent land.
Yeah, or the parcel.
Where the parcel, exactly.
I'm more comfortable with that than what people think.
Yeah, because this implies that we could sell everything but, the swing set.
Right, so we're selling potentially selling the upper parcel.
Yeah.
We understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make a correction.
Well, the survey map that was, you got the copy of the one
Correct.
upstairs. Looks like the line goes through the building, right?
It does. In the survey that the map that the surveyor provided is slightly different. It goes kind of, it's basically the top of the bank.
Yeah.
Towards the train tracks
Makes
there.
sense.
Right. Then the natural division line on that property.
Okay, any other questions? Since we're not going to vote on this tonight, I guess we're ready to move on.
Correct. Barring any changes, and then on the 21st, so that we'll circle back to this. The 21st is a Tuesday. The 20th is a holiday, so we're not meeting that day.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
Got it. Okay, the next item, as John said, the citizen who's presented this isn't here, wasn't able to make it, or whatever the issue was. But I just wonder if anyone else had a chance to read the...
I read it, but I think I need to see it.
You want to?
I've scratched my head 4 times and looked at it, sideways, and I still couldn't get what
The
it
two
said.
questions that popped up to me, basically, I really feel like I should look at it to see exactly what they want to do.
Okay.
And I need to understand, who the abutters are, and is everyone in agreement with what should happen? And then kind of, I guess third, why do we need to go through this process?
Right. So Theodore Ambrose is the one to explain it in more detail. The request came from Mr. Ambrose and his neighbor, the adjacent landowner, Margaret Hickey. So,
Or are no other landowners on that?
not the backside of Lull Farm Lane, no.
Okay.
So what we can do is on
Well,
the 20.
there are abutters though that
There are abutters
their
off of.
address would be a different road. but
Correct.
Their backyard would be.
It's either
Lull
Route
Farm.
5 or Eastman there.
Well, Andre Patno, his property hits where the end of it is.
And then it must come off of Route 5 there.
No, he's off from, the private road that was down there.
Oh, okay.
He's all the way in the back.
Yeah.
Do we know why he wants to do this? What's the issue if nobody uses it?
The issue, and I don't want to make it more confusing by providing, it's somewhat confusing to begin with. So I would prefer to wait until
Okay.
Mr. Ambrose is here to
Okay.
explain it in more detail. So would we like to schedule a site visit for the 21st then?
No, not in the dark.
Well, we'd have to schedule it much like we did for Bird Hill.
Why don't we hear
Yeah,
from
is
him
it-
first
is
and
it-
see what he has to say? And then if we need to, because we're not gonna act on this immediately.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a
It's,
crisis.
it's not a pressing issue that needs to be
Right.
resolved.
Let's have him just come and talk
I
to us.
assume that section is now class 4.
It is class 4.
So who's the other abutter?
The Margaret Hickey,
Margaret Hickey
Okay.
is currently in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
the difference being class 4 roads, you are able to drive motorized vehicles on legal trails, you are prohibited from doing so. Okay. So we'll get that, this will be on the agenda again for the 21st.
And moving on to the town manager update.
So it was relatively quiet since the last meeting because it was largely holidays up until January 2nd, when there was a brief little windstorm in the Three Corners, which took the power out and took the power line from the pole in the parking lot down, and it pulled the conduit off the side of the side of Damon Hall. So there was a live power line across the parking lot for a couple hours until GMP was able to get here. When the conduit came off the building, it did hit the kind of small roof right above the door. There was some small damage to it. We will probably just leave it as is and address it in the spring internally.
So is this a line that they just recently worked on?
No, I think what happened is that a tree fell on the line on the Quechee Road, and I think created tension on the line and caused kind of cascading effects on either side.
Is it like a significant amount of damage or just some?
No, this is minor damage here. Minor damage here. We did have Stony Electric come. When the conduit was pulled off the building, it pulled the meter out of the anchors a little bit. The meter seems to be in fine shape. It's still working. Everything's fine. It just it did cause a little bit of damage, but given that our deductible is $1,000, it's not going to cost us that much to get it all repaired. So we'll take care of that in the spring.
I was wondering what's going on when I drove by.
Yeah, it was
Were
eventful.
people in the building?
Yeah, the power stayed on the whole time here,
It blipped for a second, half
Right.
a second.
and then except for when
Took four telephone poles down?
yeah, and the transformer, 2 houses up there in the backyard.
Yeah, on the tree that came down on the Quechee Road. Is
Right.
it significant?
Yeah, oh yeah, I think that's what it wrapped around the line. I think, and that's what caused the damage. Yeah, it was eventful. The power was on until about 3:30 when GMP had to cut the power to take care of the live line. That was in the parking lot. Martin needed a ride home. He was parked on the wrong side of the line. Something about driving over it. He was
I'm
didn't want
retired,
to.
you never know.
Sold it, bought it more.
If only it hit it.
Sounds like a Johnny Cash.
He didn't want to take that risk. We talked about the North Hartland School property that's already been subdivided. There's no additional need for subdivision before a potential sale there. At the previous meeting, we talked about the $100,000 payment for the pole property, and there were some lingering questions about that. So I'd have a couple of answers on that, just to go through for you real quick. So some of the questions were, is the town responsible for any of the maintenance on there? The answer is no. Upper Valley Land Trust is the owner, and they're responsible for paying taxes, maintaining the property. They have the whole bit. One of the other questions was, well, what are the allowed uses going to be? And it's largely, existing agriculture, some limited forestry, and then kind of passive recreation. So cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, that's really it. But again, the agricultural uses will still continue, and then occasional forestry work. And the trails, the recreational use will not take precedence over the existing ag use. And I think the third and kind of big question was, when the project was presented to us, there was an affordable housing component associated with it. There's, I think patience is going to, long-term patience is going to be key here. Up until there's potential on-site water or septic on that set aside parcel, that's probably gonna continue to be an issue. But both Upper Valley Land Trust and the funders of the Vermont Housing Conservation Board are willing to kind of play the long game and wait to see what happens.
And John, that Vermont, it's a dual board of housing and
Conservation, correct.
board. So part of the attraction of their funding, it was the housing piece, which is, and what's the period of time where we can hold on to that as a possibility for housing?
I think it's indefinite.
Okay.
So that area has been excluded from the conservation easement. So we can use some temporary uses can be on that, I think it's 7 acre set aside.
Yeah.
The temporary uses approved by Upper Valley Land Trust and the Vermont Housing Conservation Board. So we couldn't potentially build a new highway garage on that parcel because that's obviously a permanent use, but there can be other uses there.
Great.
While we wait to see if water or sewer.
So we couldn't purchase the 7 acres and put a permanent, something town related on
I
it?
don't believe in the short term they would be open to that.
I thought they were. I thought we had the option to purchase the 7 acres. Because my question was, if we wanted to purchase the 7 acres, given that we paid $100,000, would we still have to pay fair market value for the 7 acres?
So I think the answer is yes, we would still have to buy the land back.
Right, but at fair market value, or do we get sort of a discount, or what's the?
Does this transaction already go through? Does the Upper Valley Land Trust?
Have they purchased it now? Is it done?
I don't believe, I've not seen anything that the transaction's actually been
I didn't think it
completed.
was limited to just housing. We talked at one point about
We asked
the
them.
fire department and so on, and
Yeah.
they didn't say no, if memory serves me
Right,
right.
but if we have no letter of agreement with them, we have nothing.
Yeah,
Right, we have no
I mean, they were
plans.
supposed to come and talk to us once they got all the funding together.
Which they did.
I think that's, of the points you've already mentioned, that's a big one for us, because it would be convenient for the fire station.
Potentially, right?
Yeah.
It would
As
potentially,
opposed to down on Ferry Road or something.
right. So that's kind of just circling back and answering some of those questions that came out of the last meeting. There is, I'm sure you're aware, there is currently a proposal to build a cell phone tower on Town Farm. At this point, it is in a pre-application stage. In November, the middle of November, we got a 60-day, what's called a 60-day letter from the proposed applicant saying, we're thinking about doing this thing. There won't be a formal application for at least 60 days from that date, which was November 15th. After there's an application, you will still have at least 30 days, a minimum of 30 days to respond, town. So there's been a lot of chatter about it, but just so we're all aware, I'm aware of it, you all are aware of it, the planning commission is aware of it. And we will be submitting comments on the application once the application is submitted.
So the other thing and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we were going to ask the applicant to come.
Yes.
And to make a presentation to the town, and it was gonna be a joint meeting of the planning commission and the select board.
So perfectly in time.
Yes, so
So one last thing is,
yes,
this morning, I don't know if anybody's on the listserv, because the planner in me was going nuts, is I put what the rules are related to section 248 towers. So if people go on the listserv, or I can just send it to you directly, the board members, but it tells you how it works. It's not Act 250. It's not.
Does the town plan have any bearing?
It does.
it does.
It does.
Because our town plan expires in May, at which point we have no town plan.
So, well, it would be, it's the town plan, it's the town plan that's in effect at the time of application.
Unless we are, thinking ahead, unless we reapprove the 2017 town plan, and I'm not sure what the process would be, if you'd have to have public hearings or anything like that. We won't have a town plan in May, I don't think, because there's not enough time to do all the public hearings to adopt a new town.
And it still has to be reviewed then and used by the regional planning commission.
Right. So I mean, yeah, so we're looking at, it was August,
Yeah,
September.
no, I agree.
I don't wanna,
So I think it'd be worth maybe a legal check to see
Yes.
what the process would be to reapprove the 2017 town plan as an interim measure until we get a new one.
And that's already in the works.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So, Tom set it up nicely. There is a tentative date of January 27th for that public meeting from having ITW, who is the applicant, come and present the tower proposal. It would be a public meeting, an opportunity for people to hear about the proposal and ask questions. At this point, that date is not set firmly yet. I keep kind of gently poking them and saying, please give us as much notice as possible, but we have a tentative date of the 27th of January for that meeting.
but it doesn't make any sense to have a public hearing until we have an application.
A public meeting.
But it's still hard to ask questions if we haven't seen the application.
Correct.
So
So there
to
is
me, no sense having a meeting until we have an application.
The reason that I wanted to move forward with a meeting is that there is a lot of conjecture and rumor out there right now,
Right.
and we can get ahead of it if we
Okay.
if we have them come and provide us whatever information they have.
But we may have to then ask them back.
That is a possibility, but
Okay.
as opposed to playing catch up with, catching up on 3 months of rumors.
And it would have to be warned as a select board.
It would not, it could simply be a public meeting, which we wouldn't have to, well, you guys are all here, so we'd have to warn as
No,
as a special meeting.
Planning commission has to warn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and it's a joint meeting, we're presenting it as a joint meeting in the
Correct.
planning commission and the select
And
board.
I'm sorry, what date did you say?
It's currently tentatively scheduled for the 27th,
What day of the week is that?
Monday. It's the last Monday in January.
The fifth Monday, so we don't have a standing meeting.
No, it would be the fourth Monday,
Oh, you're right. So, okay.
because your next
Yeah,
meeting will be on
21st.
Tuesday, the 21st.
And is that at 5:30? It's fair.
The meeting, the tentative meeting with ITW, that time has not been set, but it would be in the evening.
You probably already answered this, and I might have missed it, I'm sorry. But is there a blueprint plan or any kind of size, shape, an elevation, or a pinpoint for where it's supposed to be located?
There are some drawings there are some proposed drawings. I think that my reluctance is that this is not their application. So things may change from now until when they actually apply. So I think getting them to talk about the tower in general and where it's at in the general setting is more beneficial than looking at it's going to be exactly 19.5 feet from the road, something along those lines. But yes, that information does exist now, and it's publicly available to everybody. You can find it on the Public Utilities Commission website. I can also.
I'm sorry, I'll send you a copy.
Thanks, thank you.
That's it for me.
Okay, future agenda items would be the articles.
Yep.
Keep reviewing the Quechee Road, and to make sure that we have that plan intact and know the dates. And then the other items here are the Bird Hill, Three Corners Intersection Lake, Cemetery Committee, and Capital Plan. Some of those are very big items, so we need to tackle them.
Correct. And I can just give you a quick update on Burkill Road. I did hear back from them. They're still kind of talking about it internally, so they're not ready to come back to the select board just yet.
Okay. Well, I'm glad they're keeping it active. Do we have correspondence?
There was. Sorry, I have two additional things for you.
This one just came in today. It's a request to say requires a representative from the town to be on the Vermont State Ethics Commission. So So we'll work out to figure out if that's going to be an employee or one of us, and what it entails.
There's a piece of correspondence going around. It's the letter from the state Department of Taxes about our CLA for the coming year, which is at 64.43%.
Going down.
So down from previous years, down from last year.
And the COD is now.
Have we put us a COD?
The coefficient of dispersion.
So it's up 20-something%. To me, that's the equity piece. You know, that your property, my property may be valued, should be maybe identical, but you've been reappraised and I'm not, and you're paying more taxes.
There's actually one other, Stacy has her, Stacy Bradley, one of the listers, has raised her hand. Just 1 second, I have one other thing for you that needs a signature. We are required annually to do a financial plan for the Vermont Agency of Transportation. It outlines how much money we get for our existing roads and what grants we have received. Essentially, you are on the back of this sheet that you would need to sign. You are you're stating that we raise municipal taxes greater than $300 per mile of class 1, 2, or 3 town highways. So we have 65 miles of those roads, and we raise, $3 million in taxes. So we're definitely raising more than $300 per mile.
But they include all our tax, not just our highway.
Correct. By municipal taxes. That's the question. We're required to do this annually. It came in at the end of December.
Just point of procedure, we didn't see any orders to sign.
Because NIMRIC was down, there were no orders to sign. Right. So if our alternate signers could come in this week, that would be great.
Yep. Definitely Wednesday afternoon, if not before.
Yeah, yeah, Wednesday afternoon, if not before, for payroll. And then
Stacy is sitting out there with a comment.
I believe so.
Yes, hi. Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to comment on the CLA and the COD. The CLA, yes, did drop down to 64.4%. I expected it to drop between 60 and 65% based on our sales ratio for the year, added with the previous 2 years. The COD actually improved. We went from around 26.5% down to 23.4%. So that actually means we're moving in the right direction with the COD right now.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy. Any other business?
There's no other business.
Okay. Entertain a motion to